Hey everybody, and welcome back to another Max Velocity weather forecast. And in today's forecast, we'll be breaking down some interesting weather coming to the United States over the next 7 days, including the threat for flash flooding, severe weather, and snow. I'll give you the latest breakdown on all these situations and more in this forecast, but real quickly, I just want to mention, I have not recorded a video in the last 5 to 6 days. That is due to my voice. It has been gone since last Friday. It is improving though, so I am able to make a forecast now. So let's jump into what's happening here across the United States today, beginning actually with the Central Plains. That is where we're watching some moisture beginning to kick up out of the Pacific Ocean, and this is all due to a stationary frontal boundary that's actually going to bring the threat for some extreme flash flooding along with even some severe weather over the next few days. I'll give you a bit more of a breakdown on that here in just a moment. Back over here to the northeast, that is actually where we have a little backdoor low pressure system that's kind of developed, has brought a little bit of snow to areas in northern New England today, but not really much of anything there. But it is a pretty interesting little kick here coming out of Canada. Also back over into the west coast, we have a very weak low pressure system as well, just west of Washington. Not really going to do much here over the next several days, but it might be something to watch for in the long term. Now, what am I talking about in terms of the stationary frontal boundary? Well, look down to the southern plains. The temperature contrast is pretty impressive in Oklahoma. We're looking at areas in southeast Oklahoma today in the mid to upper 70s. Back over into northern Oklahoma, it's down into the 40s and even upper 30s. So there is a massive temperature contrast here over the Central Plains. This is all from a stationary frontal boundary, which could bring some severe weather along with the threat for some flash flooding over the next several days. So when we put this into motion going through Wednesday, there'll be some showers and storms down in Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, even the lower Mississippi Valley, back through Texas. Eventually going into Thursday and even into Friday, showers and storms will continue along that stationary frontal boundary, and I'll discuss more on what this means here in just a moment. Look back up here to the north though. There's going to be a chance for even some snowfall back up in areas like the northern plains and back through the Midwest. This will definitely be something to watch for. Maybe some snow for areas in the Midwest. We could even see some snowfall totals upwards of 6 to 12 inches in some areas here over the next several days. I'll show you more on that here in just a moment. Once we go through the weekend and in early next week, we'll be watching a couple of different areas, 2 low pressure systems likely to develop going into late this weekend and into early next week. One of these could actually bring the threat for maybe a little nor'easter. That's not out of the question here in March, but again, there is a lot of time in between now and then for this to happen, but we'll keep you posted with the latest details there. In terms of flash flooding today, it's a very low chance. There is a slight risk for flash flooding across areas in Oklahoma. In addition to that, there is a marginal threat for severe weather. It's primarily going to be for North Texas and southern Oklahoma. That is for the threat for some large hail. Once we go into tomorrow, that is when things get a bit more dicey across the southern plains, because there is a moderate threat for flash flooding. This would really include Arkansas as well as even areas in Oklahoma, and this will be the same thing as well for Thursday. So this will be a two-day event that'll happen here in the southern plains with some flash flooding possible. We could see rainfall accumulation upwards of 5 inches in some areas, so some dangerous flash flooding may occur. Once we go throughout tonight into tomorrow morning, rain will be ongoing. Some of these will be capable of large hail, as I mentioned before. There is a low-end threat for severe weather, not notable enough here to put it on the map here, but there is a marginal threat for severe weather. You can check out the Storm Prediction Center website for more details there, but a low chance of severe weather overall. Bigger threat though will definitely be the flash flooding that comes out of this going through Wednesday even into Thursday. That stationary front will continue to bring showers and storms across the southern plains and even into the lower Mississippi Valley, and eventually by Friday into Saturday things begin to clear out. But we'll have to watch again even into the late weekend for that other low pressure system that might develop in the southern plains. This could bring more shower and storm activity. Additional rainfall likely not going to be needed after this first round of showers and storms that again could lead to some significant rainfall accumulation. So just going through Friday and Saturday, rainfall accumulation across areas like Arkansas and even into Oklahoma. There have been some varying rainfall totals. The general gist though is that our heaviest rainfall will likely fall over here, even though the European model is indicating upwards of 3 to 4 inches near the Red River Valley around Oklahoma and Texas. I wouldn't be surprised if this did happen, but I think the general gist is that we'll have the most rainfall over in areas like Arkansas Arkansas as well as Oklahoma going over the next 48 to 72 hours. And just to put it in perspective, this is the Weather Prediction Center's forecast in terms of where we'll see most of the rainfall over the next few days. Again, I think Oklahoma and Arkansas will have the best chance for some pretty significant rainfall accumulation, and that's where we're probably going to be looking at for the heaviest of the rainfall totals, but an isolated spot over 3 inches of rain south or north of there is not impossible. Now, in terms of the winter weather, there is going to be more of it. I know we're entering March. A lot of you are looking forward to spring, but we're not done with winter quite yet. We actually have a couple of days to watch here this week that'll bring some more snowfall, and even going into potentially next week, there might be another threat for even a winter storm. But beginning with the next few days, we already have winter weather advisories in effect across the northern plains, winter storm warnings in effect for 4 counties in South Dakota, along with winter storm watches in effect for southern portions of Minnesota and northern Iowa. And look back over to the West Coast as well. We have some of those over that direction as well. But look at the map. This is the most blank watches and warnings map I think I've seen in over 3 months. So we have not seen anything like this where there's just a bunch of white boxes, which means there are no watches and warnings, which is pretty crazy. We haven't seen that in quite a while in the United States. But that doesn't mean we're not going to see big severe weather and whatnot over the next few weeks, because we probably will be. So stay tuned. But going over the next 24 to 48 hours, some snow will develop across the northern plains going into Thursday morning. That is when I think the snow will start to ramp up, mostly light to moderate amounts. There might be a couple of bands of heavy snow, but a lot of this will be light to moderate. Once we go through Friday morning, that snow moves off to the east, but this is not really going to be a very quick moving system. And even though it's not going to be super quick, it's also not going to be super slow, and the precipitation will not be super heavy. So we're not going to really see huge snowfall accumulations, but we will probably see a pretty widespread 2 to 4 inches. Some areas here in North and South Dakota may get upwards of half a foot, but it seems like a low chance at this time. Once we go back over into the Midwest, snow will start to ramp up, mainly going into Thursday night into Friday morning. We could actually see a little bit of heavier snow here, so we may see higher accumulations near areas just north of Chicago, maybe even in Chicago. If you're looking forward to some snow, you do have a low chance. And then another little small system may impact the Midwest going into Sunday. Doesn't seem to be anything too particularly huge at this point, but maybe a little bit of light to moderate snow is not out of the question. In terms of snowfall accumulation, really over the next few days, we're primarily going to be watching for Wisconsin for some snowfall accumulations upwards of 3 to 6 inches. Can't rely on an isolated area getting over 6 inches of snow. But again, no big winter storm here, but there will at least be some sort of small scale winter weather event over the next few days. And earlier in this forecast, I did mention winter is not over yet, and it in fact is not. The Climate Prediction Center is forecasting below average temperatures across the eastern half of the country going into next week. And this will all be due to that low pressure system I mentioned near the beginning. I'll show you more on that here in just a moment. Here are the temperature anomalies over the next few days. Again, temperatures will be right around average for most of the country, if not slightly above average or slightly below average is forecasted depending on where you are in the country. But once we go into next week, that big low pressure system might develop around Tuesday or so. This could bring a massive cold blast to the eastern half of the United States. I'll have more details on this on our next forecast. Make sure that you subscribe down below, like the video. This forecast is brought to you by Platinum Contracting.